We have more insight on where Louisiana voters are in terms of the governor's race. The results of a Fox 8 Gray TV poll conducted September 12th through September 15th are in. 625 registered voters in Louisiana were interviewed by telephone, and all indicated they were likely to vote in the October 14th primary election. When asked if the October open primary election for governor were held today, which one of the following candidates will get your vote, 40% said Republican Jeff Landry, 24% said Democrat Sean Wilson, 9% said Stephen Wagaspack, a Republican, 4% said Independent Hunter Lundy, 3% said Republican John Schroeder, 2% said Republican Sharon Hewitt.
This is not a surprise at all. Jeff Landry has led in every poll that we've seen so far during primary season, primarily because number one, he's been running for governor for over a year now, and number two, he has by far the most money.
When asked the same question and breaking the answers down by gender, 43% of men said Jeff Landry compared to 38% of women. 21% of men said they'd vote for Wilson compared to 27% of women. 13% of men would vote for Wagaspack compared to 6% of women. 5% of men said they'd cast ballots for Lundy and 3% of women. For Schroeder, 4% of men would vote for him compared to 2% of women. 1% of men said they'd vote for Hewitt compared to 3% of women. And when support for candidates was broken down by race, 52% of whites would vote for Landry if the election were held today, 10% for Wilson, 12% for Wagaspack, 4% for Lundy, 4% for Schroeder, 3% for Hewitt. And the percentages among black voters, 12% of blacks would support Landry, 56% said they'd vote for Wilson, 3% for Wagaspack, 4% for Lundy, 1% for Schroeder, Hewitt, Dantzler, Nelson, and Barthel all received less than 1% in the poll. And who'd blacks support? Pundits believe it will be Landry and Wilson in the runoff.
This poll reinforces what we've been saying all along. We've always expected Sean Wilson to have a clear shot at the runoff simply because he is the only major Democratic candidate in the race.
What must the other Republicans do if they hope to gain ground on Jeff Landry?
Well, they have to differentiate themselves from Jeff Landry. It's going to be very difficult for any of them to overtake Sean Wilson for his runoff spot because he's got the Democratic vote locked up, which means that their only shot at getting into the runoff is to knock off Jeff Landry, which is a very, very tall order.